Well, welcome, Laura Bogash. Is that how I pronounce your last name? Is that correct?
Bogash, yes, perfect.
Bogash, for Leaders 411, Leadership Day here at the Citadel, the virtual version. Unfortunately, COVID has got us talking over Zoom instead of sending so many of our seniors over to Boeing this year. But we're very excited to be speaking with you. I would love for you just to start by introducing yourself and talk about what your role is and what your history is at Boeing.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Laura Bogash, and I lead an organization at Boeing called Materials and Manufacturing Technologies. And it's part of our research and technology organization for the company. So it's an enterprise-wide organization. We're working on commercial products, defense products, working on the aftermarket once we deliver an aircraft and support it in its future life. We support technologies that go into all of those parts of the business and either make the products perform better or improve the processes that are used in our production system.
Oh, that's terrific. And have you had any experience with the Citadel in terms of coming over here or meeting with our cadets or anything as they've come over there?
I have not been over aside from like touring around the grounds. This is my second time actually working for Boeing in Charleston. And when I was here the first time, one of my close friends and colleagues had a son that attended the Citadel. So I was able to, kind of see the grounds, attend a few football games with them. And that's been the connection so far. Yeah, I was really hoping actually in the fall or in the spring to attend. There was a Women in Business Day that was going to be hosted there. And of course that also, got delayed, and then subsequently was going to be virtually, and I was unable to attend the virtual time, but looking forward to the chance to come on over and see you all in person at some point.
Good. Yeah, of course. We'd love to have you any chance. We're glad to have you here today. How does an enterprise-wide component with a sort of specific mission, how do you have to develop your own leadership principles and guidelines, and how do they nest into Boeing's larger leadership principles? And how big is your team, and how are you managed, and how do you manage others?
Sure. So we have about 700 people in the organization who are spread all across the United States, and then probably another 200 employees that we fund their work around the world. So Boeing has global research centers in different countries around the world, in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East. And so we also fund, and in Australia, we fund work at those locations. So we consider those folks to be kind of part of our virtual team as well. Boeing as an enterprise has put forth, our leadership guidelines and values that we have at the Boeing company that we all aspire to live by and espouse, and then think about what that really means for us. So just to give one example, one of the values is to be responsible from end to end. So although we, in my organization, do very early on technology development, and then we, hand that off to others to kind of go use and put into place in the business, if we really want to espouse that value, we need to make the effort to go understand, how is that technology working out in the real world? Yeah. Is it really meeting the expectations and the needs for the business? Or should we be helping to make some additional improvement? Or, if it's not working out perfectly, what could we have done differently in order to improve the way that we develop technologies and pass them off for use by others? So I think that's a great example. It's very in tune with my own personal leadership style, very much wanting to make sure that whatever we're doing has the actual business outcome that it's supposed to, not just that we did our part, right? But that the whole system is working as it should.
How do you get that
I think if I was to think, yeah.
How do you get that feedback? If you're working with these folks who are dispersed.
So I think,
yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that we can get that feedback in. Like the first and foremost way, which would be great, is if each individual engineer, went out and occasionally touched right? That thing that in production or in our services world, to check in on it and see how it's working. Now, that might not always be practical, but the good news is we actually have a branch of the organization that one of my peers leads that is down and in with those parts of the business on a daily basis. And so they're a great connection for us to be able to keep an eye on how things are going, and they can help close that feedback loop for us as part of the bigger research and technology team.
If you're already dealing with all these offices, you're probably more accustomed to the virtual world than any of us were before before COVID hit. How do you manage these? How do you manage a cohesive leadership style across so many different locations and cultures and virtually when you sometimes don't see these folks face to face even?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting challenge. I've been in the job role just 1 year. So last week was my 1 year in this job. And I'm really fortunate that I focused my first 90 days traveling around the United States to visit each main location. There's 5 locations where we have kind of a larger population of teammates. And I was able to go in person at least twice, some of them 3 times during that 90 days to make sure that I was making those in-person connections, and I was getting to see the laboratories where our people work, getting some hands-on, experience with the work that we do. And that has paid huge dividends during this time of now not being able to travel, because I've established this working relationship with so many people across the country already. And while I still would like to go travel, and occasionally I do for certain types of work that we do, but it has helped me. The other benefit that I have seen is that it's brought my leadership team, my direct reports are all dispersed out as well. It's brought them a lot closer and helped them work together better, because before they could kind of choose to focus on, the people that were just most closely around them. And now they're having to work with those people virtually as well. So I think it's really improved their relationships with their entire peer group, which has been super beneficial. But I do spend a lot of time with one-on-one conversations. I actually have 17 people who report directly to me, which for somebody at a vice president level in an organization is actually kind of a large number of direct reports.
Yes,
So
it
for
is.
me, yeah, it's important to me to try to touch each person once a day. I don't quite get there. If I can touch each one of them a couple of times a week, like, that's fantastic. Sometimes it's just an IM, and then have an intentional time every other week that I spend with them. And it really does try to help to maintain that continuity for what we're working on together, and make sure we're staying stitched together on the individual projects that they're working on.
I'm curious to know what tools you all use, what software tools you guys use to communicate and plan.
Yeah, so there's a few different things that we use. So WebEx is like the primary communication tool at the Boeing company that we use. And then we've been using Mattermost a little bit I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's sort of like a persistent chat application where, you can ongoing threads of conversation with a group of people, and they get saved and cataloged. So if I'm not online for a few days, I can still go back and see what the thread of communication has been. And I know that's been, I think, a little bit more popular with our teams that are out there on the ground, so to speak, working with each other and maintaining that camaraderie and understanding of, hey, I need help with this, or I could use, or I'm ready to hand this off to the next step in the process. That's been really helpful, I think, for them. My leadership team, I think, some of it's just like adoption has been slow for people of a certain age with some of the communication tools that are available. So I think that's always a little bit of a hurdle, but the telephone is still a really great one as well, and a lot of instant messaging throughout the day. But WebEx is definitely the thing we're using the most.
Sure. Now, thinking about it from a different generation, from the younger generation, these cadets who are seniors, they're going to be very accustomed to this video virtual technology. But what advice would you have for them in the way that they present themselves in their professional lives, online or in person? Just thinking about what you are looking for as a team leader and someone that joins your team, what your expectations might be, how you would advise them as they step into a professional role.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that maybe just having some level set of expectations for how to use some of these collaboration tools when you come into a team, to like ask if they have something written down. And if they don't have something written down, then like maybe you can get out of them those unwritten rules that they do have in place. Because I think that can be an important part of adapting, but I think that it actually they'll find it a lot easier now that so many other workplaces have been working virtually, because we've been adapting and learning at a great rate. And I think my sort of example of that is that we've had a group of interns over the summer in my organization, spread out all over the place, of course, because they're all working from home. But we've created, an experience for them, which includes, me having said, hey, how about I bring, one of my colleagues from different parts of my experience in the company in to talk about leadership or talk about their career journey with you guys once a week.
Wow.
So that's been fantastic. So, once a week we're on WebEx together. And unfortunately, as our interns, like they didn't get computers that had built-in cameras. Like we sent them laptops, but they didn't have cameras in them. So most of them don't have a camera to be on. But we use the chat all the time, and I try to always be on camera so they get a chance to see me and interact with. If you don't have a video, can get your picture up instead of just an initial, so people can try to connect with you and get a sense for the person and not just a name or a voice. But I think that talking about those rules of engagement, using these communication platforms is a great way to start.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's been a challenge for almost every organization, including ours here at the Citadel, which is it's a very face-to-face experience here at the Citadel, and so moving to a virtual environment, a partial hybrid virtual environment, has been a real challenge. So, do you have interns from the Citadel? Have you had interns from the Citadel, or are they just, where do they come from?
All over the United States. I do not know off the top of my head
Yeah.
if we have any from the Citadel this year. I know I haven't run across one in my own team,
Yeah.
but Boeing does, cast a pretty wide net. And I know we're one of, maybe not very many companies that went forward with our summer internship program this year. So I know there were a lot of nerves on our end of not knowing if we could create the kind of experience we really wanted to create for them, especially in an organization like mine, where a lot of the work we wanted to expose them to is done in a laboratory. And so without being able to be present, but we've gotten fantastic feedback, and just people have been so happy for the opportunity to learn in whatever way they could about the Boeing company this summer. And it's been great to watch some of their project report outs and hear about the things that they've learned or the things they've actually been able to accomplish for us this year. So.
Sure. Well, one question I have, you've excelled at Boeing, you're here at the vice presidential level with all these direct reports. Did you start out thinking that this was going to be the path, or, when I try and put myself back in the seat of a senior in college, having no idea what the future might bring, and what advice could you share with them that might help them think about how to even begin the scaffolding for a vision of their lives at 30 or 40 years old?
Yeah, I've never had a plan for what I want to do next. It's never been, part of what I thought about. I guess I just, would kind of enjoy where I was at the moment, and then find like what's something that's similar to that I feel like I could take the experience I've gained and directly apply it and have an impact, but at the same time, learn something new. And I think that's been my attitude the entire way. You know, I didn't join the company even thinking that I would become a manager, let alone an executive one day, and certainly didn't necessarily see myself, you know, in the job role that I have right now. So it's been quite a journey. And I think, you know, there's probably two pieces of advice that might seem, you know, contrary, but one is, you know, just take advantage of every opportunity that you see, or at least be open to considering them. You know, I think you don't want to come in with something that's too specific or aimed at a particular direction, because you might miss something you didn't, you know, that's going to be 10 times better. You just didn't know it was there. And then the other piece of advice would be like, don't be in a rush. There's lots of time. You know, there's lots of time to sort of enjoy the journey and determine what you want to do next. As long as you have that desire, I think, to keep learning, you'll find your way, you know, to keep.
Yeah. Laura, you still with me? You still here with us? Hello, Laura.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you now.
Yes, I am. Can you hear
That's
me?
okay. I will. Yeah, I got you now. I can.
Here.
I can edit out the
Okay.
breaks. So don't worry about that.
Love to edit.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's great advice, particularly for cadets who are starting out in this unusual environment. Blooming where you're planted and realizing that there's time, and actually just doing a good job at what you're doing now will allow you to see other opportunities, particularly if you're joining a larger organization. You know, you come in one area of an organization and you don't even know what else is out there. And then you start to learn and see and realize, hey, my talents will be a good fit where I am, or actually my desire and talents might fit somewhere else. And it sounds like you've experienced some of that in your journey upwards in management at Boeing. What has been sort of one of the most interesting leadership challenges you have faced as a Boeing manager?
Wow, probably the situation that the Boeing company's in right now, honestly. You know, we have been hurting already from issues with our 737 airplane, and then COVID hit and has only exacerbated those. And the company's had to make really difficult decisions about how to navigate to a future state that, you know, we can thrive in. And you know, a year ago when I started this job, you know, I already knew that we were struggling a little bit as a company, but I didn't expect to have to be making the kinds of decisions that I'm making now. And so how do you maintain some sense of optimism for the team that's going to continue to be here? And how do you send off those that we just can't hold on to any longer with respect and gratitude? And I think that's been, you know, one of the greatest challenges for me in this. And it's hard to think that really kind of compares, you know, with respect to the sort of personal impact that it has on me as a leader, but also the importance of, you know, how I bring myself to doing that for the organization.
Yeah, that is incredibly difficult. And, you know, obviously we're big Boeing fans. I flew Boeing airplanes for the military, and, you know, the Citadel and Boeing have had a great relationship. So it's hard to watch these struggles, you know, for so many great organizations. So many great organizations, including Boeing right now. Financially, it's very tricky and difficult. So, well, before we wrap up at about 20, 25 minutes here, what final advice might you have for a senior who's thinking about how to approach getting a job or entering a job in our sort of modern world? You can think about anything you think might apply that you've seen with your young people, like mistakes they've made, things they shouldn't have put on social, you know, whatever it is that comes to mind, like specific examples of things you've seen young people do that have been both excellent and pretty tough to watch as a senior leader, and help them avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I think having enthusiasm to learn is by far the number one thing that I appreciate about people who come into the company, you know, early in their careers and wanting to have an impact. Where that can get a little bit too much is people who believe that they should have my job right away. And it's not that they don't have the capability, because they certainly have the capability, but there is the value of experience, and the trials and tribulations and the subtleties of leadership and connecting with people that you have to learn along the way to be as effective, and to put those talents that maybe you already inherently have that are super valuable and relevant to a position like I have, but the experiences that I've brought along prior to getting here, you know, make that so much richer. And I think sometimes it's hard to see that, and I had a hard time seeing that myself when I first started. It's such a stereotypical thing to say, but it's really true. And I think that there are times where, you know, people can be so confident in what they're capable of that it can turn off others. So there's this balance between, you know, being excited to learn and wanting to contribute, and, you know, valuing experience for what it is.
I think that is both a very common complaint, a generational kind of complaint.
Yes.
I want it all. I want more. I want it now. And then also, I've shared that experience where you think, man, I really could be doing this already. But you look back, and I guess you grow in wisdom as you get older, and you
Yes.
think, wow, I thought I knew everything, and now I realize I still don't know half of anything. So
Exactly.
I think growing up in an organization is ultimately a very humbling experience. You know, so I think getting over that hump early that you think you know everything is pretty good advice. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. The cadets will love hearing what you've had to say, and I'm just very grateful for the time we got to spend together today. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I hope to get another chance sometime soon.
Absolutely. We'll be in touch. Thanks so much.